So right now we are in, unfortunately, one of the biggest political polarization moments in history. And a lot of people are wondering exactly why this is the case. Um, I think we take it for granted right now that political discourse is at an all-time low and an all-time polarized. So just to start us off, what are the biggest causes of political polarization today?
In my opinion, it is primarily our election process. How we even decide who our leaders are going to be in the U.S. It causes a huge rift, between people, just based on their ideologies. Um, the I would say the election process is kind of all where it starts and ends. It's what is the deciding factor on like how the next 4 years are going to go as far as like people getting along. Something that I actually advocate for a lot is ranked choice voting, which is the exact same voting system that we have right now, and still a democratic republic type of representation of government and everything like that. But ranked choice voting is you just choose like a second and third place like runner-ups, and that helps to like get rid of things like the idea of like voting independent is like a wasted vote, and it really helps eliminate that divide that politicians seem to like to really stir up in order to like really lock in like one full side. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the polarization comes from the way that we vote in general. I'm not trying to necessarily change that. I do want to educate people on different options, so we're not just a two-party country for the remainder of the country. But I think it also comes down to social media companies. They tend to kind of show you the things that you agree with in order to keep you like just doom scrolling forever, just for ad revenue and everything, which makes sense. They're a business, but I think they're kind of underestimating how much damage they're really doing to us as people, not just to the political state of the country, but also like to our psyche, and yeah, I think there's a lot of things that really help push the divide farther and farther away. But I do think that those are probably two of the bigger things is, yeah, social media, and then just the overall way that our election process even happens.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, the election process has gone on in the same way pretty much since 1776. And so there is a question of why now is it so polarized? But I think the answer is social media and even
Right.
traditional media. Are there differences in the way that social media and traditional media operate in trying to amplify political divides?
Like let's say like legacy media, like traditional media. Of course, they're split right down the middle as well. Most, I would say most, not maybe not all, but most media sources have their own political biases. I mean, we all know that. It's pretty easy to spot. But I would say that social media is a lot worse because not only do they show us the news, but then we get to engage with one another on it. And I think discourse is kind of something that needs to kind of be like nurtured. Otherwise, it just becomes a kicking and screaming match because like we're tribal creatures. Like when we have a side in our mind that we are on, we want that side to win. And it only makes sense. It's how we evolved. So it does make sense, and it's not an easy thing to just always remind yourself to remain neutral and not to go, not to like just solidify yourself on one side. Um, but yes, I would say that social media is definitely, I think, a little more toxic for our brains and everything. But there's there's definitely a divide that happens from traditional media as well.
Because with traditional media, you only get these 10-minute segments, 5 to 10 minutes, and
Right.
you get cut
That's a
to
problem.
ads. and you're kind of
Right.
injected with news, whereas social media, you get these 10 to 30-second clips, and you don't ever get really the full story. And at times it might be fabricated. There may be deep fakes. There may be comments that point you in different directions. There are people who have way more followers who are sharing things that may not be true. And so you
Right.
get this strange cesspool. And it's even worse for younger people because they just start immediately consuming all of this without any real critical thinking. Does political discourse in that way differ across generations?
I would say that the technology, I guess, definitely makes it differ. I would say that kids today do have it a little harder, and it's more just in your face today. And I mean, I've heard like 13-year-old nieces and nephews talking about like Trump and the politics overall in general. Which is a bit odd. I mean, we should absolutely always encourage, I think, our younger generations to understand politics and how the system works, and kind of prepare them to be voters. But it is still a bit odd to hear, like a 13-year-old talking politics, and it's because they're on social media constantly, and it's very deeply embedded in essentially all social media, especially right around an election time. Yeah, and then the older generally had to deal with it maybe twice a day, the morning news, the evening news. Um, yeah, so I would say it's a little harder, probably a lot harder now, for people to they're just seeing it wait. It's not just what the content is, but it's the amount of content.
So, on that note, are there any certain cognitive biases that reinforce our existing political beliefs? Like, are we running algorithms that predispose us to being more tribal and being more polarized in this day and age?
Definitely. I mean, every social media platform is running algorithms that keep you on the platform, and I think that's like their duty to their shareholders, is to maximize profits, and that's exactly how they do that. And that's what I find to be the problem is that, of course, they're corporations and they're always going to look at the bottom dollar. But I think the way that their system is built to for that to be their revenue generation is keeping people on the app for as much possible time as they can, and just due to the way that their algorithm is set up, I mean, it works, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Um, I mean, I would say I know maybe a couple of people that like at most that have the like self-control enough to not end up like doom scrolling, for very long periods of time. It's a hard thing to combat, especially for people that aren't like even aware that it's happening. They just think they're on social media. They don't realize that these companies have these insanely advanced algorithms that can really lead them down a rabbit hole, basically. And
Yeah,
I think that amount of time that they spend doing that is it's very unhealthy for their brain.
100%. 100%. I've written extensively about the way these algorithms operate and how they affect the minds of people young and old. And I still find myself being increasingly susceptible to doom scrolling. I'm just spending 10 minutes posting stuff and I'm answering DMs and everything. And then I've spent 30 minutes. And
Right.
it's where the hell has that time gone?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Like I'm supposed to be the person. I'm supposed to have this like sanctimonious attitude of I'm better, and I'm still falling into the matrix. It's a very
Right.
strange thing.
It's difficult. It's like actually mentally it's difficult, to not just to even because you can even like catch yourself and then still so even being like situationally aware that like okay, I've been doing this for way too long now. But still just continue going,
Mhm.
just continue. It's like, but well, whatever. Just it's it's difficult. They've really found a way to make it very difficult. We have an algorithm that's set up that we try to not exactly do the opposite. Like we're not trying to run anybody off the platform, obviously, but instead of having an algorithm that just shows people exactly what they want to see, because what that's called is an echo chamber. That is literally just an echo chamber. It's just, and that's how you keep people on the platform for a long period of time, is create an echo chamber. So instead of doing that, we created an algorithm that does do the opposite, though. Not for the opposite reason, but does the opposite. So it doesn't show people exactly what they want to see. It shows people kind of contradicting views, like other points of view that will challenge their own. So people can get used to a little bit of adversity and getting out of their comfort bubble a little bit and being willing to have their ideas challenged. And I think this is how growth happens, is if we don't learn how to like talk all of these things out, and we're going to be stuck in this continuous cycle just forever until we are eventually one day so polarized that some president does get shot, and then we're just something, it's going to happen to our country basically. And nobody wants that. So I've been looking for the last couple of years while building PoliTorium. I've been looking for whatever ways I can find to just do the opposite of what other social media companies are doing right now, as far as like our moderation system goes, and just everything that I see happening with social media platforms right now. I see it to be the wrong way to do things. I see it to be the way, like, they're doing exactly what they shouldn't do. They're doing what is polarizing people and what is like mind melting people, So yeah, I think as far as the algorithm goes, they have it down to a science, to an art almost. Like they know exactly what they're doing. They have psychologists on the team, like they're
neuroscientists, data scientists, psychologists, billions of dollars. Sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely. They're doing a great job at what they're doing, but I just feel like they're doing the wrong thing, the right thing for them, I guess you could say, but the wrong thing for the people and for the country, and yeah.
I do want to take a step back. There are two ways we could go. I really wanted to go on a tangent and talk about, like, I feel like with that assassination attempt with Trump, that was a moment that we've forgotten already, but it was a moment where we were really on the edge of something collapsing.
Right.
And I don't know what that particularly is. I don't want to say it was a moment before Civil War. I don't want to say that there would be January 6th, like a remnants happening in all major cities. But it just felt like something about that moment has been missed and forgotten and not talked about anymore. Is there something that we're missing, if you would like to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I'll go as far as to say I think it would have been much, much worse than January 6th, and like even removing Trump himself from the equation, I think the same thing would have happened if, say, something happened to Kamala Harris, because we're like so tribal and we look at our leaders, and like such a light that they're like almost freaking saviors, that it becomes, because both sides tell the other side, like, hey, your person's a communist, or hey, your person is a fascist. So then we look at our own side as like, this is the guy that's going to beat fascism, or this is who's going to, whatever, we look at it like that. So when that person, gets like assassinated, then we're like, oh my God, like they just killed the guy that's supposed to beat fascism. So then we get crazy, but yeah, I think, I think a lot of people are saying it right now, so maybe it's a little bit cliche, but I do think that was kind of like a timeline moment where, had he been shot, had the assassination attempt been successful, I think, yeah, I mean, I think the country right now wouldn't be in a great place, and I think we got really lucky, I guess I would say. But yeah, like it's like we forgot about it, and it's exactly what we were just talking about with, like legacy media is. they control what we watch and what we see and everything. And then, I mean, even as far as social media goes, it's kind of the same thing. But I think social media, like you said earlier, they're focused on these like little like 10 to 30 second like TikTok brain sort of videos and stuff. So it's like they say like the news is like 7 day like 1 week news cycle. On social media, it's like 1 day news cycle. Stuff's coming out just so fast that
Great point.
nobody's wants to talk about the things that happened like 4 months ago, even though like that was a huge situation. That was a big deal for in 2025 or 2024 at the time for any presidential candidate to have an assassination attempt in the United States of America. It's like where are we? But then of course there was a lot of oddness, I guess, around the whole situation. Like the guy's like house was like scrubbed clean. He didn't even have like silverware, like utensils and stuff like that. And he had like 5 phones, but no social media, just all kinds of like weird situations surrounding it. And hopefully these are all things that we learn. Like we deserve to know what happened, like what actually happened. I mean, I wouldn't call it a matter of national security for them to tell us the truth and what happened in that situation. It's not like, it's not a national security issue. But yeah, I think like we stopped talking about it because just like so much comes out so fast, and then it's not just news that we have to deal with. Then it's like influencers' opinions and politicians' opinions, and then it's just everybody's opinion. Everybody's got an op-ed nowadays. So yeah, those type of things, they just get washed out. Like,
Yeah, it's this strange thing of everybody has an opinion, which is bad, but also when only one person's opinion matters, that's also bad. And so we haven't figured out a good balance. Not that I remember this, but let's just say hypothetically, I wasn't around for Watergate, but I assume that was talked about for more than a week. Let's say it was talked about for more than a month. Let's say it was 6 months, right? That's still a significant chunk of time to pull things apart, analyze different aspects, talk about it with your friends and family, have real conversations if that even existed then. But now that 6 month time frame has gone to 6 hours, as you're saying. What used to happen, if it's not on the news for at least a week, it's not news. And if it's not on social media for at least a day, it's still not news. And so with that time frame collapsed, what does political discourse become when every single day there are millions of opinions about thousands of different topics?
right.
How do you even handle that? And I think we're not evolved for this. This is just like an alien environment.
Right. Yeah. Technology has just grown so fast. I mean, even like 30 or 40 years ago, people used to just not even talk politics. Like they would talk it, but it was more so, it was one of those things like they say, like you don't talk about at dinner, religion, politics, you know what I mean? So we just went from kind of avoiding the topic to now it's all we talk about. And the change happened almost overnight to where, and also there's a lot of money involved, which is never a good thing, at least not for the common folk. There's a lot of money involved in these talks, just on social media and ad revenue, yeah, so it changed just so fast that nobody really had time to like brace for it, and then people capitalized on it. So it just got very out of hand very quickly. Like just in a couple of decades, it kind of became. I mean, I guess just polarization is the word, is to, tribal. It just became so like, it's like sports almost, where when we pick our person or whoever like best represents us, like we'll lay down and die for them basically, and I don't think that that's how all of this is supposed to be. You know what a big problem is we used to not have career politicians. We used to have politicians who they would go through life and were, massively successful, and where they were inventors and, all of these different things. And then at the end of their life, maybe not at the end, but, once they had achieved quite a lot, then they would get into politics, like, to make a difference. It wasn't for, like, money. It wasn't for lobbyists. It was, like, to help. And I feel like that's not the case anymore. I mean, now we have people that they're like 24 years old, and then boom, they're a congressperson, they're a senator, and then they're in politics for 50 years. And it's, it's just these types of things. Then we see their name, and we, for the rest of our lives, basically. Mm-hmm. And so they're either on our side or they're not. And like, if they are, then we'll defend them with our dying breath. And if they're not, then we'll attack them until our dying breath. So yeah, it's just how rapid everything changed. I think we weren't prepared for it.
I do want to take a step back again and just ask, one of the biggest things I want to accomplish with this program, not just this episode, but with this entire podcast, is talking about things from the foundation. I feel like we throw around echo, not that you're doing this, but I feel like people throw around the word echo chamber or polarization, and even to an extent fascism and communism, fascist and communist. They just throw them around without really understanding what that is. And that contributes to polarization. And I do want to double tap on that. But just for echo chamber and polarization, what are these things? What does it mean to be in an echo chamber? What is an echo chamber? What is polarization? I don't want to continue as an individual just saying, oh, we're all polarized. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I've read. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6 months to a year. I just assume that everything is polarized because that's what I see in headlines. What is polarization from your understanding?
So polarization first specifically, I think is a tribal mentality. And, I think both of those words are essentially the same thing, except they kind of, I think polarization touches more like on our, the psychology of our brain, that is like, comes with emotions, where the tribal mentality is more instinct. So to me, polarization is something that creates a thought process that, like I said, induces emotions, whether they're happy or sad or anxious or mad or whatever they are. They are made to specifically attack emotions, right? So whenever say the media constantly repeats the word fascist, right? They're trying to polarize us. They're trying to make us think a certain thing. And they're trying to do that through emotions. They're trying to invoke anger. They're trying, whenever they say democracy is going to end, all of these, little things that you'll hear just
hyperbolic statements.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that's what polarization actually is, like, to its core, is emotion inducing wordage. Whatever language is going to cause or create a divide between people is polarization. And actually, being polarized in itself is, I think, like, essentially when you have a thought pattern that is almost out of your control. Like, you can't turn it off. You can't just go, I'm not polarized anymore. Because it's not up to you. It wasn't up to you to become polarized, and it's not up to you to stop being polarized. I mean, there's definitely things I think you can do to minimize it, to work on it, and most of that is uncomfortable. It requires challenging your own points of view. Otherwise, you're polarized. And as far as the echo chamber thing goes, that last part that I said about challenging your own points of view is almost the same thing. If you're an echo chamber, I would just call something that affirms what you already think and feel and believe. Just like social media, only being a part of groups and only talking to people that agree with you. So going to specific, let's say, X for the right is essentially an echo chamber, and blue sky for the left, Reddit for the left, are essentially echo chambers for the left. Because you're going to be pretty hard pressed if you go on Reddit and you say something, giving Trump like props on something, you're going to be like downvoted to oblivion.
Oh yeah.
So that's an echo chamber.
Downvoted not just by people, but by bots as well.
Absolutely.
That's something that I've realized only in the last couple of months, which is like 99% of the things, the people commenting on Reddit, they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is your mind is being manipulated and coerced by AI in a sense, not in the AI like Terminator stuff, but like bots that are just run to continue commenting about random stuff to build that echo chamber. And as soon as you break out of the matrix, you comment something that does not conform to that echo chamber, you're immediately downvoted and, booted out of existence on the platform.
Right.
And it's yeah, go ahead.
That's what they're trying to do is create specific echo chambers, because these social platforms, they have their own political biases. And I'm not sure if you heard this or not, but Facebook actually announced this whole thing as if it were a good thing, that they were going to release a ton of bots on Facebook to kind of up conversation, to create more conversation. It's like, so they're literally telling you, and those bots are programmed in one way or the other. They're either biased towards one side or the other. I mean, I guess you could try to create like unbiased bots, but then what's the point of even doing it? Then, then they just talk to everybody and be like, oh, I guess you got a point there. Like, that's not what bots are for, So yeah, it's super odd that I would say most social platforms at least avoid admitting it, that they have a bunch of bots. But yeah, Facebook decided to just say, hey, we're releasing a ton of bots into the atmosphere of Facebook, and, it's going to help
deal with it.
Bro. Yeah, exactly. And I would fully expect that those bots are programmed to have some kind of bias,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's, and it's all done intentionally. It used to be a secret, but it's all done intentionally. Some bots are programmed just to not even comment anything, but just to specifically downvote or upvote, one way or the other.
If I need to interrupt you just right now, because I can hear people commenting and thinking this is a fucking conspiracy, and we need to stop this, dismissal and this hand waving of whenever we're talking about politics and what's happening online and from social media platforms. We need to stop calling it a conspiracy, because there is an incredible amount of information detailing this. I mean, I can link to everything in the show notes and in the comments if people want, but this is not a conspiracy. This is not like two people trying to create something. We're just talking about stuff that already exists.
Right.
And this is the question, is how do we stop whenever we're talking about politics from a meta standpoint, people just dismissing it and saying, oh, that doesn't happen. That's a government conspiracy from the right or the left. It's like whenever we're talking about truth, people immediately dismiss it and say that's not real. Right. It doesn't make any sense how to even counter that.
Yeah. Like everything's a conspiracy, essentially.
Right.
And no matter, if you say something that is condoning the left, then it's a conspiracy, and anything condoning the right is a conspiracy. As far as stopping that goes, I'm not even sure that it's possible. I think it might be one of those things that just has to run its course, and people got to get tired of using the word over and over. But as far as I understand, the term conspiracy theorist was coined by the CIA or some intelligence agency specifically to make people not believe particular information. It just as a way to be like, that's fake. And to kind of just. So they could, anything that goes against what they have done or are going to do or whatever, they could, claim it's a conspiracy, and then everybody say, oh, it's just a conspiracy. And then people start repeating it. Then it's like sort of an echo chamber, but in a different way. I think those types of echo chambers are different than how we actually like think of echo chamber, because I think there's an echo chamber that affirms ideas and there's an echo chamber that repeats certain things, like that's a conspiracy in order to eliminate some sort of information, basically. Yeah, but to actually make people stop doing that is these are all things that as PoliTorium grows, that I want to try to address, kind of, because yeah, it's just like just writing off information that it hasn't been proven to be untrue. Like there's situations, and I personally don't like publicly and openly talk politics just because of the nature of my business. I'm the founder of a political platform that is not Rumble or something like there is no political bias, or it's a place for people to actually have their side and they can represent their side, and there's no shame in it, and we just talk things out. But I will say there has been things that were said to be a conspiracy, like the laptop thing, completely fake. For like 2 years, Facebook banned anything that talked about it, and then it turned out that it was like a real thing. I don't know what's on it, and I don't know all the details and everything, but you couldn't even talk about it, without being muted or at worst banned off of the platform. And then it did end up being real, and there's tons of those things, like the Wolfowitz doctrine and there's tons of things that intelligence, they call it a conspiracy theory, and people stop talking about it because then you look crazy. And I think that was the exact point of coining the term and creating this like psychological effect, is to make people look crazy. Like if you talk about this, like you're a wacko, you're a conspiracy theorist,
You're a whack job. Yeah, it's in the same breath. You talk about two types of echo chambers, one that affirms and one that repeats. What is the echo chamber that does both? So if I'm talking about Kamala Harris and I'm saying, oh, she's a communist, there's an echo chamber for that. I'm repeating exactly what it is. I don't understand anything about communism. I don't understand anything about her policies. I've seen her talk for 30 seconds, but I'm still talking about her as if she's a communist. Same thing for Trump. Fascism didn't happen during his first term. It's not really happening now. I mean, brackets yet, but whatever. But every time I go online, I go on Reddit or just go on Google, it's fascists Trump, or Trump is a fascist, and all of this. Why are we using such, Nazi, for example? I can't tell you how many times I've seen the word Nazi thrown around in the last month. And I understand why, but it's like, are we going to continue using these words these are strong words that have historical baggage.
Yeah.
We cannot just throw these terms around. Why are we using them so loosely? This is the thing. This is, we're talking about political discourse, and I understand that, and polarization, but why are we, using these terms creates more polarization outside and also inside. It creates more external polarization for the people you're talking to, and it creates more internal polarization for yourself. Because now, using that word, Nazi or fascist or communist, anything that you consume now is through that filter. And so you distance yourself from reality with every single piece of news, every single piece of information that you consume.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're using it for that exact reason, to create polarization. Like it's what they want. It's literally what they want.
Who is they?
I would say everybody in specific parties. Everybody connected to specific sides, as in meaning politicians, lobbyists, businesses that benefit from a particular political party. Just kind of everybody, everybody on a side. It's not as simple as we all want our side to win so we can say we won. There's just endless piles of money involved. Whoever ends up crossing the finish line first, all of the people on their side, they're going to benefit. And this is a huge problem with having money in politics. Is again the the like creating polarization, the purposeful polarization, to essentially rile people up enough to go. It doesn't even necessarily have to be to change minds, but to get them to go vote, to convince them, because, it's just like in America, we don't really, like, yeah, we encourage voting and you see it all the time. Go vote.org. Hey, I got my voter sticker, I'm a good person. But it's so small scale. Like us we have this whole I'm just one person sort of mentality here, which is just insanely insane to me, that we've allowed, we're supposed to be like the strongest democracy, the freest country, the land of the free, and somehow we have like nurtured this idea of just only being an individual. Like, but that's supposed to be the purpose, is that I'm an individual. So, a lot of us have a lot of people don't vote, is what I'm saying. And so it doesn't even necessarily have to be about changing anybody's mind. I don't think they're expecting to take a MAGA person and convince the guy or the girl that Trump is, a Nazi. I think they're trying to rally their own party and get them, to get mad, essentially. Because angry people vote. Content, comfortable people don't usually vote, because that's just what we've kind of bred. Like, everything's going good, why change anything, So I think that is why, is the polarization gets people to the voters' booths, which, if I'm being honest with the amount of money in politics right now, I'm surprised that we're even like allowed to vote. And that's not to again sound like a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying that our elections are like I'm definitely not saying that they're stolen, rigged, or I'm saying I think that they're pretty healthily like bought. Just whoever can throw the most money at it generally wins, especially local elections, which, becomes an even bigger problem, because our local government that nobody even seems to care about is what really affects us in our day-to-day life. But yeah, I'm surprised that, these people making these kinds of this kind of money from politics is kind of even like allowing us really to go to the voters booth and vote, because it just seems like they wouldn't want to lose that money. And both this is a problem with the two-party system, is both sides have all of those same people on their side, so a whole bunch of people are going to get to benefit if one side wins and vice versa, yeah, that's where I think all the polarization comes from, is they want to continue making money.
So then, Thomas, what do we do about this? What are you doing about this? What is PoliTorium?
Well, that's where we really just get into everything about how do we change almost everything, with the way that our political discourse works, the way that our political system works, the thought processes behind our politics, and most importantly, in my opinion, even more important than political discourse, I think, is how we talk to each other overall, is our general communication. I think the internet has really bred this this like sense of like, the whole like gotcha moment. Like, we all want to set traps for each other for that dopamine hit of like, I beat that guy, and that it's not healthy communication. And it's definitely not healthy political or social communication. So overall, the overall idea of PoliTorium is to like reshape how we communicate, bring communication back to a point of like pre-internet days, to a point of where we weren't like so comfortable just kind of shitting all over each other to make ourselves like feel better. Not I'm not a big like person that like like the whole feelings thing, like caring about people's feelings. I don't really care about people's feelings. I care about like just having, well, not even so much like, like getting to the truth, but talking for real, having serious conversation, whether like generally speaking, people don't change their mind. But what we can do is be willing and be more comfortable with seeing other opinions. Having our own opinion challenged. Because while you might not change your mind, you might just add on to your opinion. So a lot of people have an opinion about something and they aren't even actually informed in what it is that they think. Like they just hear something, they hear a whole bunch of things, and then you put your opinion together based on that. And then you don't know anything even about your own beliefs. So what PoliTorium is just to real simple, a place for respectful political and social discourse, and that comes in the way of several different like functions and features that build this system of how respectful, like how do we guarantee that, how do we ensure that people are going to be respectful. So our goal is to remove trolling and remove hate and put real conversations in front of people, conversations that get people comfortable with having their viewpoints challenged. If I could, I'll share this visual that describes pretty well exactly how we plan on doing this at scale. You can see that?
Yep.
Okay. So the first step with doing anything similar to PoliTorium is fostering respectful political discourse. You can't have a platform that you expect to have respectful discourse if people don't want that platform. So everybody doesn't have to be on the same page and all agree like right off the bat like that they want this to exist, that they want a place to have real meaningful conversations. But we have to foster and nurture that thought process. There will be some people, and we've already seen this before, because as a solopreneur, about a year and a half ago, I released PoliTorium myself after I just built like a minimal viable product. And, we got up to like 3,400 users, got picked up by like Business Insider and Yahoo News with some press and stuff like that. And there was plenty of people, tons of them, in fact, that wanted to have a place for real respectful political discourse. And that was only the people I was even able to reach. So the people that want this platform but don't know about it, those are the people that we still gotta reach them. And there are plenty of people that want this platform, and there will also be plenty of people that come to the platform trying to just troll. It's just not what it's for. So while we'll get to it later about the like the transparency board and freedom of speech, and we think that nobody's rights should be controlled by a corporation. We'll get to that. It's actually the last step. We still do, though. We just say, like, go to X, it's just not what this platform is for. So if your idea is to come and troll, like, we're not trying to tell you what to say. We're just saying go say it somewhere else, because this is it's a topical social media platform, and we just expect everybody that uses it to abide by the ethos that the community is built on.
How do you identify trolling, just as an aside? Because if I'm trying to comment earnestly and then I get identified as a troll, that's a turnoff.
Absolutely. So trolling comes in just so many different shapes and sizes. Yeah. A lot of it can just be tone, like sarcasm and like condescending tone. A lot of it comes in kind of like backhanded banter. So several different steps in the process of identifying trolling. One of them being AI. Like AI, that's the fourth step that you'll see here. AI tone and phrase detection is an LLM that's trained on essentially learning and this is going to be a process of growth because it is a system that has to learn. So it's a system that can detect different tones and phrases that kind of are linked to like attitude. Essentially, it can detect attitude and how you're talking to somebody. But the whole identifying trolling thing, yeah, I think it boils down to classing types of trolling, and comments and content falling into those classes and then being evaluated and seen as identified as like, is this trolling or is it not? Really, it's an entire growth process. But the whole system is built, and as we get through it, you'll hopefully see that each one of these steps complements the next and the one prior. So based on the entire system of respectful discourse at scale, all of these steps incentivize and require the next. So we'll move into the second one. The suggested feed is how we expect to break echo chambers, or at least add to how we will break echo chambers. It's an aspect of it. So we have three feeds in PoliTorium. There's your home feed, which is like who you follow, the people that you actually want to see. There's your local feed, which is based on your approximate location. If you allow the app to use it, or just simply type in your city, you'll see just specifically your community's political discourse. And then there is the suggested feed, which is a feed reel of content that challenges a user's points of view, right? So you set your political party to, whatever your ideologies are, and based on that and based on content that you create, you're going to see content that challenges your own perspective. And this is maybe one of the most important aspects, and I'll probably say that throughout this entire thing. This is an important aspect, or the most important aspect, because all of these things, if we don't try to stop all of these things, if we don't not stop but fix, rebuild, reconstruct all of these things, then all of the ones that we do try to rebuild, it's going to be all for nothing, kind of. This is all.
Nothing in this is trivial. Nothing in this is trivial. So it's all for a purpose.
Yeah, one can't really exist without the other. I guess you could eliminate echo chambers without eliminating corporations, like controlling people's freedom of speech, but it would be for nothing. Without every one of these processes and these philosophies and features and functions, without fixing all of it, we're just not addressing the big picture. So by showing people perspectives that counter their own, this is exactly how you get people out of their bubble, out of their comfort zone, and how you break echo chambers. It's how you make people be willing to converse with points of view outside of their own. So that's the purpose of the suggested feed. And I think it's one of the more important aspects of the entire platform, because if you don't get people out of their bubble, you can't really end polarization, because they're polarized by that echo chamber. So step 3, it's a reputation system that encourages quality content. Now this is very, very similar to Reddit's karma system, right? It's just a pure sum of the likes and dislikes, or upvotes, downvotes, whatever you want to call them, that a user gets across the entire platform. So on comments, on content, all of the likes and dislikes that they get on everything they create. But the difference between this and karma is it's not something that you have to go to the user's profile to see. Every user will carry their reputation points, essentially, across the entire platform. So every single place that you see a user's content, whether it's a comment or a video or a post, anywhere that you see a user right next to their name, every single user will be their reputation points. And so based on that reputation, you can kind of evaluate the type of content, the quality of content that a user creates. Now, if a user has, like let's say negative 1600 reputation, then you can kind of assume that they're either a troll, or they just create really, really poor content, or they banter in ways that the community doesn't mostly really engage with. And then based on that, a user can choose, like, do I really want to waste my time engaging with this person that isn't trying to be real about a conversation? They want to banter or troll. So through this reputation system, we hope to at least slightly minimize the amount of trolls, because trolls troll for a reason, because they think it's fun, because it's an exciting thing to just to shit on somebody, basically, or to we'll just leave it at to troll them. So we hope to minimize the amount of trolls just by making it less fun. Encourage the community to just leave them alone. I don't want to just purely ban people just because they have, they've managed to get like negative 15,000 reputation. I want the community. That's up to the community, because if somebody does want to engage with them, that person should have the right to do that. So this is a way I think will pretty strongly minimize trolling and encourage quality content. Is people aren't going to troll if they're not being engaged with. It's just no fun. It's no fun to just comment one like sarcastic or snarky remark on content and then nobody engages with it. It's not fun. So, and then step 4, we just talked about a little bit, AI tone and phrase detection. This is going to be a growing process of, training an AI model to learn the tone and phrase detection aspect, because it has to go through the, it has to be fed a ton of content to then evaluate and figure out, how exactly to detect tone and phrase. So this will work alongside the transparency infraction board, because if it does detect a steady influx of sarcasm, let's say, from a particular user, then whatever action, it deems like this user is, unproductive, basically, unprogressive towards the conversation. They're not taking anybody serious. They're not engaging in good faith, and it would then basically issue some sort of infraction, which then an entire separate AI system would take over and also evaluate the same thing. But then that AI system works alongside a human, so it's a hybrid moderation system, basically. And then that human makes the final call of the judgment call, basically. And then we'll get to the transparency infraction board. But the step 5 is incentivizing ID verification. So basically just proving who you are. And we do that through an API that you scan the barcode on your driver's license and you take a selfie. Then our API sends to a third-party company, evaluates. So a user's ID is never actually in our database or in our system. It's sent to a third-party company through an API that determines whether or not that user is. So the company gets the user's profile, their just who they say they are, and they either confirm or decline that yes, this is the right user, or no, this isn't. And the reason for that as well, for incentivizing people to verify their identity, and it's not required, it's not a thing that's required, it's just an option. And the reason for that is also to minimize trolling and to encourage quality content, because generally speaking, people troll on fake accounts. Nobody gets on their personal account. I mean, some people do, but a lot of people don't. They use a fake account and they just go out and troll because it's fun. It's what they do on Friday night or whatever. So we incentivize ID verification through there's certain features, like I'll just throw one out for example, like petitions. We don't want petitions to just be an open gate for everyone to create unlimited petitions, because then the ones that people are serious about making real change, they're just going to get drowned out by the thousands of other petitions that are created by trolls. Like, I petition to send Biden to jail. Like, that's not a petition, you know? It's not a real thing. It's not how our judicial system works.
To some, it's a petition.
Yeah, but it's just not a thing that is serious, because you could get 50 million people to sign that, but by law, it's not going to send him to jail. You know, he has to be convicted of a crime. So it's just not serious. It's not looking for real change. So there's certain features that are available only to people who incentivize or verify their identification, their like who they are. And so, you know, like on X, you can get your little blue check mark if you pay $16 or whatever. So you get the same verified badge on PoliTorium, but instead of just taking your money, we just want you to show that you are who you say you are. You know, essentially the badge, I don't even think it means verified on X anymore. I think it just means like premium, because they didn't verify anything except that they have $16, you know. So we more so are less concerned about the monthly, you know, payment, and more so just like we want to encourage quality content. So we incentivize that they just verify who they are. So there's several features that are accessible only to people that verify their identity. But again, nobody has to. You can create, you know, like anonymous accounts. You know, it's just one of those things that we're trying to minimize as much as possible poor quality and content that's not in good faith. You know, so these are all steps that, you know, work towards doing exactly that. And then the step 6, the Transparency Infraction Board, is, again, you know, I'm going to say it, one of the most important aspects of the platform. You know, so during I got out of the Army in 2020, and during the 2020 election, it's a pretty chaotic election, maybe one of the crazier ones that we've had in recent times. A lot of people were banned off social media. They were just, you know, quote unquote canceled. Just voiceless, like left to, you know, not be able to engage with the public whatsoever. And so I think that's insane. I think corporations being able to do that to people, to Americans particularly, it should be against the law, in my opinion. I know that a company is like, oh, it's their, you know, it's their private property. It's that they own it. They get to make the rules. And while that's true, I think silencing Americans, it's very un-American. You know, so what the Transparency Infraction Board does is it's a public board that, you know, you can find on PoliTorium.com, where whenever a user gets some sort of infraction for, you know, violating the ethos of the community, the terms of service as well, the infraction is made public. The user is anonymous, and, you know, they're given a you know, like a verification code to know exactly, like, because you could see the whole board, and you know, you need to know which one's yours, because what you can do is go in and appeal your, you know, your infraction, essentially, whatever your punishment, I guess, is, you know, whether you're gonna be muted or banned or whatever it is. A user gets the opportunity to appeal. And they're not appealing to us, they're appealing to the community. So the community, the user types a response, gives a response as to why they think what they did or said or content they created didn't violate the terms of service or the ethos of the community. Why they think that what they said was fair and, you know, real, or whatever they got an infraction for. They can appeal it, and then the community gets to vote and decide whether or not the person, you know, stays or is muted or unmuted or whatever. So what we're trying to do is take that power to silence people out of our own hands. And as well, it's a public board because we want to make sure that our moderators are held to insanely unbiased standards, right? So if we see that a moderator is constantly, let's say, like right leaning or left leaning, then we get rid of that moderator. We don't want political biases, especially in a position of power like moderation, and because we want to keep the entire platform as neutral as possible and just a stomping grounds for respectful discourse. We don't want political biases in it. And then that just leads back to fostering respectful discourse. The people have to want this place to exist or it won't exist.
How do you balance moderation with censorship? Because one person's moderation is another person's censorship.
Right. Right. Well, so it's a very touchy thing, a very touchy subject, I think, because there are certain things that, like, let's say in the case of Facebook, the FBI reached out to them and said, hey, this is Russian disinformation. We want you to silence anything talking about this particular topic. We want it removed. So a part of PoliTorium's ethos and essentially, promise to its users is that we will toe the line of the law, right? So if it's legally we have to do something, then we will do it. But if the FBI or somebody were to say we don't want this talked about, if it's not proven to be false, like proven, like it's a fact that this thing is fake, well, then it's going to be allowed to be talked about. If some company or person or influencer or whatever does something that's being talked about, in the public on PoliTorium and on X and everything like that, if they reach out to us and just say like, I don't want this talked about, well, it's going to be allowed to be talked about. If something is proven to be fake or like, I don't want to use words like harmful or dangerous because those words are thrown around where, at this point it's everything is dangerous. Everything is harmful, and I think all of that is so silly. I think, I guess like I realize that words can hurt, but really like only feelings. And I know that there is, I recognize that people have, behavioral and mental health issues and, certain things being talked about, I guess, can affect people. But I'm just not sure that is, it's not censoring is not a place that I want to allow PoliTorium to get into, as far as like, just doing it just because it's like harmful, or dangerous. I think people need to hash things out. I think things need to be talked about, and not just swept under the rug almost ever. I think everything should be talked about. Literally like everything, like I said, if something is literally proven like this is fake but people keep on parroting this particular thing, then yeah, it'll be that type of thing would be removed, especially because I don't want just a bunch of spam on PoliTorium and people just repeating the same thing that just plain isn't true, because that's polarization. So something like that would be removed. But if it's not like cold hard facts that it's fake and we're still, let's say, like something's being investigated, well, then people are going to be allowed to talk about it. I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't talk about something. And if it's like not even something that's like fact-based, but is purely, let's say, opinion on something somebody did, I'm not going to stop people ever from expressing their opinion. And while some people's feelings might get hurt, I think everything, near everything, should be allowed to be talked about.
How do you balance and think about political discourse in your individual life outside of PoliTorium?
I used to like engage on social media and political discourse, and I talk to my wife a lot. We talk politics and stuff like that, and I do have my own opinions. And sometimes it does kind of because I'm doing a lot of these podcasts right now, and so I think some people like don't realize that it's very counterproductive for me to talk like specifics in politics because my position is to remain neutral, to give people that neutral ground, but sometimes I do want to. Yeah, so it is kind of like a balancing act because I can touch on things in public, let's say, but I can't go into specifics or express opinions. I mean, of course, I could say I could, like this thing that this person did, I think was wrong. But then they think if I'm on that platform, sorry, I want to make sure I'm not cutting out.
Yeah, you cut out just for a second. Keep going though.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to make sure that, the people that think like this thing is right, even though I think it's wrong, I don't want them to have this sense of, having some, like, being on a platform where it might have biases against somebody. So my balancing act really for political discourse is just purely not getting into specifics. Yeah, I guess that's basically it. I guess I could say this. I don't want to fix politics. I want to fix how we talk politics. Because that in turn will fix politics.
Sure.
If you don't fix how we communicate, then you can't fix the root of the problem. I think the communication is the root of the problem, and then fixing that will allow it will allow the solution to grow.
So I'm in Canada right now. I'm in Montreal. Can I sign up for PoliTorium?
No.
No, not yet.
So this is how PoliTorium is going to essentially work. I feel like I have no place telling Nigerians how their politics should work, right? Because I'm American. And I feel like Canadians have no place telling Americans or Mexicans how their politics should work. So the way that we're trying to do PoliTorium is in every democratic nation, because there's a lot of countries that's just not going to allow us to operate because the people the reason for PoliTorium is we get to have a say and a vote and a voice, and a lot of countries they don't. So there's nothing. PoliTorium can't help them. I wish that it could. I wish we had the power to like break through into those countries and give North Koreans a voice, but we don't have that power. So as far as democratic nations goes, we're going to scale into as many democratic nations as we possibly can, hopefully all of them. But it's going to be the same platform, but it's not going to be the same users. It's going to be the users of your country, right? So if you're in the United States and you're on PoliTorium, you're going to see the United States version of PoliTorium. It's not a different version, but I'm just using that word. You're going to see the people in that country on PoliTorium, like on your feed. I don't want it to be like X, where this is like an entire world town hall, because I think we have to be specific with these things. And I don't want people to get sidetracked and go, Canadians need to focus on Canadian politics, because we all have problems of our own. So once, and if it's something that involves the United States, then they can talk about it, amongst each other and hopefully get to some sort of solution or at least common ground and like what they think should happen. But if Canadians can access the American politics, well, then they focus on American politics. They're expressing their opinion about Trump and all of these things that, while it does, I know that politics in the United States obviously affects the entire world. I don't think expressing opinions on it is what's going to help them. I think looking at their own reflection, what their actual politics, something that they can affect, basically. They don't have the ability to affect American politics. They can't vote here, so I think keeping everybody separate and in their own corners to figure out their own political discourse and their own issues in politics is the appropriate thing to do. So I think we already have a bunch of town halls. You know, we already have Reddit and Facebook and Blue Sky and X to all talk together as a world. We don't have a place to just focus on us, you know, focus on what's going to fix us.
See, the problem with contemporary social media is that these are town halls, but there are so many bots on them. There's so much trolling on them. Basically all the issues that you've beautifully described. And so when I go on these platforms, I'm seeing women undressing, I'm seeing hate speech, I'm seeing random memes, racism, misogyny,
Right.
you know, all of these. So it's like I'm going into a town hall that's endowed with all of these bad actors, and I don't even want to go there. Everybody's saying everything. And so there's no real place for me to go in cyberspace. Even if I don't like talking about politics with everybody. Like on this program, I've never really talked about my politics because it's none of your fucking business.
Right.
For me, I'll talk politics sometimes with my family. I talked with my very close friends about politics. And for me, the healthiest discourse with politics is when my friends ask this very simple question: why? Why do you think that? That's all we need to ask. And that's all I ask as well. Instead of just rejecting them. If, you know, I'm pro-choice, for example, but if someone is pro-life, I'm not going to just get this, you know, vitriol and this hatred for them.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they're infringing on rights or whatever. Just like, hey, why do you think that? And honestly, Thomas, 99 times out of 100 these are very interesting conversations. Very interesting conversations.
We need to talk.
That occur.
Like I was saying a couple of minutes ago, everything needs to be talked about. And that's why censorship is so you know, so these are these polarized words that now you can't even really use them in their actual sense. But when I say, you know, censorship is harmful, I mean actual harmful. Like it can cause harm to our communication and to our discourse. So just shutting down ideas of, like, let's say the pro-life, pro-choice debate. You do need to ask why, because if you just start going like, oh, well, then you're a Nazi, you won't let women have abortions or whatever the topic might be. If you're just plain not allowed to talk about it, then how do we get anywhere exactly? So we all just stay on our sides and then that's it. You know, we don't try to find a common ground. Like, just to like use it as an example, I'm completely moderate on the issue. I think that there's times that women should 110% be allowed to have an abortion, especially if it affects like their health in particular. But I also think that it shouldn't be used as birth control. You know, so. Yeah, so like, why can't we just talk about that and get to, you know, a point where, like, let's say, with the birth control issue that I was just saying, why don't we educate people and give them preemptive, you know, sources like birth control, actual birth control, because, you know, abortions are also can harm a woman whenever they have them as well, you know, so. If it's being used for just birth control, why don't we just give them birth control? Now, this isn't even me, like I said, I'm completely moderate. It's not my body, you know. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do ever. But, you know, I think that there's health reasons and moral reasons and everything like that of that should at least just be looked at. You know,
no, but you know, you're a privileged white guy in the U.S., and so you're not allowed to have an opinion on this. Like, I'm waiting for them to just to say, you know, somehow I'm not allowed to talk about these things because I'm a guy.
Yeah, well, exactly, but everything should be talked about, and I don't like. It doesn't matter what side you're on or what side I'm on. It should just at least be discussed.
But this, sorry to interrupt you, but this is the thing is I can't. Because if it's not you and it's someone else, and as soon as I say I'm pro-choice, they immediately turn around and call me a baby killer. There's nothing for me to say to them. Yeah, like I literally cannot. I can't even say why, because then they've completely rejected me. They want nothing to do with me.
Right.
They'll say this in public. You know, like they'll just like overhear my conversation at a coffee shop, even though I would never talk politics in public, which
Yeah.
is the thing. It's like I'm being oppressed by the
Yeah.
things that I want to say, or, you know, I should have freedom of speech and freedom to say whatever I want,
Right.
within moderation, of course, but I'm not allowed to say anything out of fear that the wrong person is going to hear and give me traits and out me in a
Right.
strange way over stuff that I don't believe, of their caricature of me. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's no way to live.
It's definitely not. And I think classifying like any group of people and just saying like these people aren't allowed to talk about this because of this like demographic that they fall into, that is insane. I think we all have opinions on things, and the only way to move forward and to grow is just by like how do you grow your opinion? Your opinion should be something that like changes all throughout your life. We have this whole situation too where if you're like your opinion changes over a decade or so, now you're like a flip-flopper, and your party like just ostracizes you, just doesn't want anything to do with you because now you're a flip-flopper. And it's like, no, I grew. I heard other people's opinions and then mine changed. So how do we ever, we got to a point now where growth is like a bad thing. And yeah, it's crazy. But back, like getting back to what you're saying too, yeah, I think not being allowed to have an opinion on something, on anything really is, it's just stupid. I don't even know what other word for it there is. Everybody should be allowed to have an opinion on everything.
Is there anything that you can say to these people? Like, I don't know, like, hey, you're being incredibly, I don't know, it's even gonna be stupid for me to even try to conjure up something, but like, hey, you're being oppressive, or hey, like, why don't we talk this out or something? Like, are there any olive branches you can extend? Have you found this to be the
Um,
case?
I mean, I would say it really depends on the person, but a lot of the times, not usually, but then a lot of the times, yeah, kind of. I personally just like I always try to avoid these like polarized words, the words that just get parroted in the media and on social media. So like if for me personally, I think it all comes down to whether or not the person agrees that communication is how we grow. Because if the person just, a lot of people are really, really set in their ways, and so you tell if you were to tell people that you're being oppressive, or I should be allowed to say this, and like, you shouldn't even have to explain yourself really. But a lot of people, they don't want to have the talk because it's a difficult talk. It's a difficult conversation, so they would rather say you're not allowed. That's what an echo chamber is. They only want the people of this specific demographic that believes this specific thing to even be able to talk about the thing. So a lot of the times, no, I don't. And this is what I mean about reshaping conversation. We've been told that everybody is oppressed in some kind of way or another, and only they should be allowed to discuss it. But I just don't see that as a way to grow. Because discussion and counterpoints of view, that is literally adversity, and growth comes from adversity. When you just live inside your bubble, you're not changing anything. Just having your viewpoint, you're changing things by helping other people grow their viewpoints. So as far as like a specific thing to say to people, kind of just like, hey, I'm going to talk about it whether you like it or not, and that's kind of it. You can choose to engage in the conversation with me, or you could not. It's But I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about everything because I believe everything should be allowed to be talked about by everybody. There shouldn't be these protected topics. It doesn't make sense. I can't think of a single benefit from only like this one group can talk about this thing. Like only Jewish people can talk about the Holocaust. That's insane. It doesn't make any sense. Everybody should be allowed to talk about every topic, because that is how we grow as a society. It's how we all come to maybe not a common like viewpoint, but at least common ground where we all know where we stand, and that's that. But it doesn't need to be this like back and forth like shit throwing contest of like you're a baby killer and you're the devil or something, whatever it might be. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for our mental state either.
It's just like you need to. Whenever somebody brings stuff up like that, I just dismiss them that they're not real, like serious people. And it's I feel like a prick doing it, but also it's just like if you don't want to have a conversation, then there's no point for us to talk. And that's probably how they feel about me. But at the end of the day, it's like I want to talk about ideas, and you just want to put me in a box and not let me open it.
Absolutely.
Not let me break out. And so,
right. And that is like that's the, I think, epitome of how it should not be done. Like the actual exact definition of how communication and discourse should not happen is by putting people in boxes and just putting them looking at their demographic and saying whatever, like you're over here, you can't talk about this, or your opinion doesn't matter because you're white or because you're gay or whatever. Your opinion is like whatever you are, whatever demographic you are, your opinion doesn't matter because of that. That's absurd. It's unhealthy for us personally, and it's unhealthy for us as a society, for growth. Yeah, it's just a bad thing. I think like at the end of the day, the one thing that everybody should remember to say is like, well, I'm going to talk about it because that's how I'm going to grow. I'm going to talk about it, like it or not. Like you don't really have to listen. Just like, on PoliTorium, I'm going to talk about it, and you could choose not to engage. It's just like you see all the time in comments and stuff. It's like, you could have just scrolled by. Same thing at a coffee shop. You could just not engage and walk away if you don't like the conversation. But you can't tell people that they can't say things. Otherwise, we're not free people, yeah.
if you had any advice for young people, it doesn't have to be in the realm of politics, but 100%, you're a free person, so you can choose how to answer the question. But if you had any advice for young people, what would it be?
Realistically, if I had one piece of advice, it would probably be, and it's I guess a little cliche for me to say it because of just my position of what I'm trying to do and my business and everything, but it really would be recognizing like your voice and just understanding that you can look at the sense of being an individual in two ways. I'm only an individual, so I can't do anything, or I'm an individual. I'm a unique individual, so I can do something. Be it in politics, be it like what you're going to do in life. I'm a unique individual, so I can do anything I want, just like other people have succeeded in doing. And even being in something as small as voting. I'm an individual and I get a vote. A lot of people don't get a vote. A lot of the world doesn't. And then a lot of the world that does, their vote doesn't even actually matter because everything's so corrupt. So really recognizing that, like, being an individual is a good thing, and not to allow yourself to be put in boxes and to be, don't choose sides. There shouldn't be sides. Everything good comes in moderation. Like too much of any one thing is not a good thing. So, and that even comes with like political discourse, the whole reason for, trying to show people counterpoints of view, obviously that's not something that's going to get people to doom scroll, and it's not something that's going to make PoliTorium a ton of money. But it's the healthy thing to do, because people are going to have enough of seeing other people's points of view, and they're going to close the app. And I'm totally fine with that, because everything should be done in moderation. You shouldn't spend 15 hours a day attacking another side. But you should be a unique individual that finds your own opinions and build, just builds your own thought process and not just like fall into one side.
If you had a magic wand and you could solve one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
Probably, realistically, maybe political discourse, because I think I could say like world hunger, but I think if there's still tons of corruption in politics and tons of infighting in just in the world with us as people, we'll just get right back to people being starving because food is a resource, and that's what politics is about, is limited resource economics. So there's no reason to end world hunger because we didn't fix the root of the problem. We didn't fix the leadership issue around the world, the politics of it all. And the way that I think that we fix politics is by remembering that really it's all just built on us. We're all just people. We act like politics is like a made up thing essentially. It's just an agreed upon leadership scale. So our voices matter and our opinions matter, and the way that we vote matters. And I think that is the thing that would fix, I guess, the most problems, you could say, is by fixing the political system, which comes from fixing political discourse, would fix a lot more problems than just picking one problem to fix. That would more than likely just get messed up again because of just poor leadership in politics.
Do you think politics is the root of all evil?
No, not at all, really. I think it's a root of a lot of evil, definitely. But I think it's because it's allowed to be, because we allow it to be. There's certain things that we all know shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be insider trading in Congress. The people that make the laws should not be allowed to leverage money on those same laws that they're making. But we allow it to happen. So I think there's a lot of evil that comes in politics, and I mean there's people that things that we don't even hear about, like countries that get attacked, and I mean just everything that happens in like Yemen and stuff like that, and a lot of that is politically motivated. So I think it's the root of a lot of problems, but I think it's also the root of most of the good. All of the, like for in America, for example, tons of people, like most people, whenever people talk about America, they always talk about the bad that America does in the world of, world police and everything like that. And I totally agree with all of it, honestly. But we rarely talk about like the good, the humanitarian aid that, we spend tax dollars on for people that we'll never meet. And nobody even knows like, oh, hey, they just sent like, 100,000 pounds of grain to, the South Sudan or whatever it might be, just as an example. And we'll never even hear about it, So I think it's the root of a lot of good and evil. And I think that it could get closer to the line of good if people work together. That's the thing, is we don't all have to agree with each other, but if we all just hear each other out, then we have the ability to work together and I guess come to agreements. Like everybody comes to the table and we negotiate almost, on best like leadership practices. Like we used to have the loser of an election would become the vice president and the winner would be the president. And then there was, so then there's there's not a majority. Like right now in our political system, the Republicans have the House, Congress, and the Senate, so there's no like moderation in that. And I think whenever politics gets like that, that's when I think it's a problem, because an entire like 50% of the country is being overlooked. And I think that's evil to those people, right? So I think evil is subjective. I think it's really about what position you're in. Something that's, like Saudi Arabia killing a bunch of people in Yemen. That's, good for Saudi Arabia and bad for Yemen. And that's politics. So yeah, I think there's a lot of both, and there could be a whole lot less of the evil, if people were to talk, I guess, to hash things out.
What gives you hope in the world?
Um, Really, I think the thing that really gives me hope is uh, this is just for me personally, for my life. I only have the perspective of me. Um, but since starting PoliTorium, I've never ever, like, not once ever had somebody go like, "Dude, that's a stupid idea. Nobody will use that." So I never did a product. What do you call that? Like I never did an evaluation on, like, will people use this or anything. I just started building it. I've never ran a business before this. I've never built a product before this. I forget what that's called, like a product like validator. Like, I never validated the product to make sure users wanted it. I just was like, I want it, and that's enough, right? So then once I started building it, and then I started telling people about it, I've only ever gotten good feedback. I've only ever gotten people like, dude, that's going to be cool. Like, that's exactly what we need. The thing I hear more than anything is people say, like, that's the world needs that more than, a lot of things right now. And that really gives me hope, because while I know a lot of people will spend their Friday afternoon, trying to troll and do things like that, I believe that most people recognize the issues and political discourse, and most people don't like it. Like, it feels so polarized on social media because everybody's like at each other's throats, But I think the majority of people aren't. I think most people are moderates that are forced to choose a side. But if it were up to them, they would choose moderate. They would choose, like, I think there's some good on each side and some bad on each side. And yeah, the fact that I've never had somebody say, like, that's a stupid idea, or nobody's going to use that, or it's going to be impossible to do. I've never had somebody say that. And I think that gives me a lot of hope. I mean, it also gives me a lot of hope because I'm like, thank God I didn't build something that nobody's going to use. Because last time I built PoliTorium, like I said, it was picked up by several decent sized publications. The only thing I knew how to do at the time was really run, like, paid ads, and it still managed to gather thousands of users. So that gives me a lot of hope, and that I think most people recognize the problem, and if it were up to them, they would fix it, or they would find a solution, or at least work towards a common goal.
Fantastic. Thomas, this has been a great episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I usually hate talking about politics, but you're someone that really made it fun and interesting and lighthearted in a strange way. So I appreciate you a lot for allowing me the space and allowing, yourself to talk about these things extensively, deeply, and at length. So you're really talented at that. Thank you. Where can we find you online?
I'm on. Well, you can find me on PoliTorium. If currently, just to put it out there, currently we just launched the new version of PoliTorium with my new team, who rebuilt the app in its entirety. They did a great job at it. But we just launched our iOS beta. So if you have iOS, it's an open beta. You can use it. We'll be launching the, like, official 1.0 in about a month. But for right now, we're doing debugging and everything. And on Android, it'll be out in about a week. Outside of that, you can find me literally anywhere, X, Blue Sky. I try to be everywhere because I don't want to be in an echo chamber. So I get a little bit of X, and then a little bit of Reddit, and a little bit of Blue Sky, So I try to, like, just keep it moderate, I guess. Yeah, my username on everything is PolitoriumTom. On LinkedIn, I talk about business. On Substack, I write, I have a weekly article. Everything is just PolitoriumTom.
Fantastic. Well, Thomas, it was great talking with you today. 100% you'll be back here to talk more about PoliTorium.
Definitely.
It's more hashed out, and I can't wait to use it in Canada. I can't wait for it to come there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very exciting. Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. That was a great talk.